MAGA Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene announced on Twitter today her plan to save Steve Bannon from prison. And unsurprisingly, because it's Marjorie Taylor Greene, it's completely dumb and bonkers. But before we dive in and talk about the tweet itself, we need to talk about Steve Bannon and give some background information because that'll be important when we go and analyze the tweet. Now, Steve Bannon is a former White House chief strategist for Donald Trump. But honestly, I feel like it's giving him too much credit. He was only a former chief strategist for 7 months, so he didn't even stay there for a year. But regardless, he used his position to get very popular in the online space for promoting MAGA and just very far-right ideals. And specifically, one of his big things that he's known for is the We Build the Wall scheme. And this was a fundraising campaign that was meant to help fund the border wall, which ended up being a complete fraud. Basically, he took all the money and just ran with it and didn't do anything that he promised with that money. He's also known for his role in January 6th, where he was very heavily promoting and suggesting that people riot and cause chaos to, basically contest the 2020 election. And here's a clip just to sort of give you an idea of the kinds of things he would say.
All hell is going to break loose tomorrow. It's all converging, and now we're on, as they say, the point of attack, right? The point of attack tomorrow. I'll tell you this. It's not going to happen like you think it's going to happen, okay? It's going to be quite extraordinarily different. And all I can say is strap in.
Now, the whole reason we're talking about him today is because of his involvement in January 6th. See, when Congress was investigating January 6th, they actually subpoenaed him to come in and testify and give documents relating to his involvement, and just about January 6th in general. But basically, he just refused to testify and provide any documents. He just didn't show up. And guess what? Not showing up when you're subpoenaed is illegal. And in 2022, he was convicted and sentenced to 4 months in prison for contempt of Congress. Now you'll notice that was 2022. That was 2 years ago already, but how come it took so long? Well, because the legal team representing Bannon basically kept submitting appeals saying, no, he shouldn't go to prison. But eventually, a federal judge stepped in and said, nope, you gotta go to jail on July 1st, 2024, which is in just a week or so. So now that we have an idea of who Steve Bannon is, how does he relate at all to Marjorie Taylor Greene? Well, basically, the simplest answer is that they are both extreme MAGA people. And that shouldn't surprise any of you. They're both two terrible human beings. And they seem to be friends, or at least just talk a lot, because here's an interview that they did not too long ago talking about how you shouldn't underestimate MAGA and how they're gonna make a comeback or something.
This is the key point. People have taken for granted that MAGA, and to win, you need a MAGA 100%, and I say 110%, and we can get that. But people just can't take MAGA for granted. Because right now, people are saying, why will we vote for, you're just voting for Hakeem Jeffries. Axios.
They should be furious. You want to know something? And those 101 Republicans and Mike Johnson himself should really be looking in the mirror and asking themselves, how am I going to win an election? Because you're right. MAGA cannot be ignored. You want to know what they constantly love to lecture me, Steve, in our conference meetings and when I'm in Washington? They love to say, oh, Marjorie, your district is different. Oh, Marjorie, your district that's just what your district is. What a bunch of, and that's so insulting. Let me tell you why. The same voters in my district are in every single district across this entire country. And not a Republican in our conference can get reelected without those voters.
Yeah, so they're both pretty delusional, but that's why they get along so well. And because they get along so well and are such great friends, Marjorie is constantly saying that he shouldn't be going to prison and is basically just defending his actions, even though what he did was illegal. And that's what brings us to today, where Marjorie Taylor Greene was basically tweeting in her support of Steve Bannon and her plan on how to save him from going to prison. So here is that tweet, and we're basically just gonna go line by line and talk about how crazy it is. Now, her opening hook is the Republican Party must fight fire with fire. And basically this is just to rally her MAGA supporters saying, oh, we're gonna go in with the pitchfork and the torches, wow, we're gonna get them. Next, she writes the Democrats are literally imprisoning their political enemies, and we're sitting back and watching it happen. Now, this is not true whatsoever. The Democrats are not imprisoning their political enemies, they're imprisoning people who are criminals. That's exactly how the system is supposed to work. If you break the law, you go to jail, I guess depending on the severity of the law that you break, but in the cases in which we are imprisoning our political enemies, we are throwing people in jail who deserve to be thrown in jail, basically. Next, she says, I am proud to support Eric Burleson's resolution to revoke the illegitimate subpoenas issued by Nancy Pelosi's sham January 6th committee. We'll come back to this line in a second because it's related to this one, but Peter Navarro is sitting in a prison cell because the GOP doesn't have the backbone to fight. So she's just listing off another political enemy that we threw in jail. When we get back next week, Speaker Johnson should immediately move to pass this resolution, reverse the subpoenas, and stop Steve Bannon from going to jail. Notice how she has speaker in quotations, she just hates Speaker Johnson. But anyway, her plan to prevent Steve Bannon from going to prison is to, I guess, just reverse the subpoenas? So her thought process is, well, if the subpoenas just didn't exist, he wouldn't be going to jail. I don't think that's legally how it works, but okay, Marjorie. Next, she says the Democrats have declared war on us. So she's using this very heavy war imagery, because this is how the MAGA Republicans and even just Republicans in general rev up their base. They say that the Democrats are, at war with us and all these terrible imageries because that's the only way that they can win. They have to fire up their base and say, hey, you're going to die if you don't vote for us and don't get on our side. You got to listen to this. That's the only way that they can do it. That's why they have to use this wordage here, because that's the only way that they get support. Basically fear-mongering, that's it. And she continues with this sentiment by saying they want to see every Republican in prison because they hate what we stand for, and they hate the American way of life, and they hate that we are winning on the issues, which completely not true whatsoever. We don't want to see Republicans in prison, we want to see criminals in prison. That's what? Basically, what Marjorie Taylor Greene's implying here is she doesn't care if you're a criminal or not as long as you're a Republican. And Republicans are the only ones that have the American way of life, I guess. And then she says they hate that we're winning on the issues. That's just not even true. Republican policies are consistently, on average, voted lower on than the Democrat policies. The only way that you are able to get any support is because you say that if a Democrat is in office, they're going to send Republicans to prison, which is just not true. And then she says, we have to wake up. We have to utilize every legal means necessary to prevent their communist takeover of America. And there it is. It wouldn't be a Marjorie Taylor Greene post without her using the word communist or socialist in there somewhere. I'm willing to bet that she can't even define what a communist is, because I assure you, that is not what the Democratic Party stands for. Republicans have to realize the game that we are playing and that the rules that are constantly changing because the Democrats will stop at nothing to vanquish us. Pretty bad grammar in that sentence, but it's Marjorie Taylor Greene, what do you expect? But I just want to ask, what rules are you talking about there, Marjorie Taylor Greene? Because you didn't really specify what rules you're talking about here. Are you talking about the Constitution? Because that certainly hasn't changed in a while. Because here's the thing, the rules aren't changing. We are just following the rules. The rules look like they're changing to you because you're the one who's changing the rules and is just not following the laws. You and the Republican Party don't have really any consequences, so you don't even know what the rules are. So when we actually follow the rules, they seem obscene to you because you've been breaking them the whole time. And I find it funny how she's saying that the Democrats will stop at nothing to vanquish us, as if the Republicans haven't played dirty and unfair at all. Remember how Obama was in office and he needed to put someone in the Supreme Court, but the Republicans were like, oh, but the election's up soon. Let the next person who wins the election decide. And so Obama was like, okay, that seems reasonable. Let's go ahead and do that. And then at the end of the Trump term, same thing happened. Except guess what happened? The Republicans said, nope, just kidding. We're not going to play fair or do what the Democrats did. We're going to play dirty and just do what we want and not wait until the election. That sure seems like the Republicans are the ones who will stop at nothing to vanquish us. She ends the tweet by saying, I commit to fighting this battle, but we have to have leadership that will back President Trump, force the opposition to heal, and save America. And let me just say, anyone who's backing Trump is not out with the goal to save America. No way. They're out to turn America into this authoritarian landscape where they rule the rules. And this tweet is the perfect example of this, because the Democrats are the ones who want to uphold the rules and have a civilized society. But because Marjorie Taylor Greene doesn't play by the rules, she doesn't like that. And so she thinks that's unfair, and she wants to quote unquote save America, which basically just means put her on top, and I guess all of MAGA, and make them above the rules. So really, we need the leadership and we need the power to basically stop another Trump term and not let this craze go on any longer. Overall, this is just a completely ridiculous tweet by Marjorie Taylor Greene, and just shows not only how dumb she is, but also how far right and how little regard for the rules she has when it comes to actually like putting criminals in jail. Republicans are supposed to be the law and order party, but she's wanting exactly the opposite. So really, the Democrats are the true law and order party.